Welcome to Off the Couch with Dr. Greg, where psychology meets everyday life. I'm Dr. Greg Cason. I'm here with Brian Gomez, producer.
Happy Monday, you guys.
And we have Jamie on the board. Hi, Jamie.
Hello, hello.
But today is a very, very special guest. It's a very special episode. We're thrilled to welcome iconic actress and transformational coach whose career has spanned decades of inspiring work both on and off screen. You may know her as the beloved mother on E.T. or from her unforgettable roles in Cujo, The Howling, The Hills Have Eyes, and over 350 other movies, many of them classics. I couldn't even name them all. But we have with us Dee Wallace. Dee Wallace is more than a Hollywood star and screen queen. She's also an acclaimed author, 7 books, a healer, a motivational speaker, a podcaster with over 500 episodes. And today we'll be diving into her latest book, Born, which explores how we can create lives filled with love, joy, success, and through the power of self-alignment. So get ready to be inspired as we sit down with the one, the only, Dee Wallace. Hi, Dee. You know, I'm so intrigued. You have such an interesting story. I just didn't even know where to begin.
Neither do I.
Because you were raised in Kansas, right?
Kansas City, Kansas.
Kansas City, Kansas, and you were originally going to be a teacher.
I was a teacher.
Or you were a teacher, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was the career. And then something happened. You auditioned for Hal Prince?
Well, I said, if I don't get out of here now, I'm never going to get out of here. And so, I wrote Hal Prince. I saw in the New York Times in our library at school that he was looking for an unknown to star in A Little Night Music. So I went, I'll just write him a letter, right? So I said, Mr. Prince, you know, I'm a young actress from Kansas, and I'm coming to New York. I would really love to audition for you. Just think of the publicity. It was such a corny letter. Think of the publicity, an unknown girl from Kansas, right? Well, everybody laughed at me, and I said, thanks for sharing, but I'm sending the letter anyway. And a few weeks later, his secretary called and said, Miss Wallace.
Wow.
And I said, yes. She said, this is Mr. Prince's secretary, and he received your letter. And the cheesiest picture, I had the guy from the school newspaper come and take me a picture like this.
Oh.
Oh, it was so cheesy. On my bed.
She was like sitting in a sexy pose with her thumb in her mouth.
Kansas coy or whatever. And so she said he would like to fly you to New York.
Wow.
To audition. And this is how naive and straight I was raised. I said, oh my gosh, when does he need me? And she gave me the date. And I said, oh, wow, I'm arriving that day in New York. What time? Well, 5 o'clock. Well, I was landing at the airport at 1 o'clock. I said...
Weirdly perfect.
Yeah, you know, so he would have flown me first class and the whole thing. But no, I was honest.
But that's who you are. But you know what's kind of striking me, and we'll get into this. You already were manifesting this. Apparently, you bought a ticket. Somehow you landed on the exact date that Hal Prince, the famed Broadway director, producer.
Yep. And I landed in New York, took all my belongings, put them in a cab, said, hi, could you take these to blah? And they all arrived. I went to Rockefeller Center and got down to the last 5 girls in the dancing and the acting.
Wow.
And Mr. Prince said, okay, I'd like to hear everybody sing. And he went, oh, I didn't know we had to sing. And his secretary said, well, dear, it is a musical. He said, it's all right, honey, sing happy birthday. So the accompanist said, "What key, honey?" And I went, "Somewhere in the middle." And I played violin, I knew music, but I didn't know what key to done.
No.
So, needless to say, did not get that role, but I got pretty darn far.
Yeah, if you got to the final five in front of Hal Prince for a little night music, that is, you like were shooting out of a cannon.
And so I talked to all these great gypsies, and they gave me the best singing teachers in town.
Wow.
And I knew I wanted to study with Uta Hagen.
Wait, you studied with Uta Hagen?
Oh, yes, I did.
Wow. So, okay, gypsies like Broadway, these are like the Broadway pros. The Uta Hagen is one of the great acting teachers of all time. And I used part of her stuff in a class I used to teach for graduate class in psychology because I was really impressed with it. I picked up one of her books and I was like, oh, my goodness, this is amazing stuff. So
yeah, she was amazing. And I had met this gentleman at an audition, and we kind of started dating, and I said, "Would you be my scene partner?" I study at Uta's.
Wow.
So he says, "What are you going to audition with?" I said, "Well, I did this play in Kansas City called Mary Mary by Gene." He went, "Oh my God, Dee, you can't audition for Uta. You've got to do a classic." Or I said, "Well, yeah, but I was really good in it. I'm gonna do this part." He said, "Look, first of all, she never takes you on the first time, and secondly, she'll stop you 5 minutes in because she's not going to accept Mary Mary." So I said, "Thanks for sharing." We went in, we did it. 5 minutes in, she stopped me, and he looks at me and gives me this, "Told you so." And she looked at me and she said, who have you studied with?"
Wow.
And I said, "Well, Miss Hagen, I graduated from the University of Kansas, but really my best teacher was my mother." And I see him throw his head into his hands, right? And she looked at me and she said, "Well, here come the tears. She taught you really well, and I would love to have you in my class." And I turned to him and if I could have gone right in front of her, I would have. But so that's my Hollywood, New York story.
No, it's phenomenal. You must have had one of those lights because it seemed like everyone recognized it along the way. Everyone seemed to recognize that something special was inside of you. So Uta Hagen did. Hal Prince did through the paper, through a letter, and actually,
and a cheesy picture.
And a cheesy picture. You got to love that. But you went on to play some amazing roles. You were the Stepford Wives, by the way. I didn't.
Yes, and I actually was sitting in the lobby waiting to interview for a receptionist job because the $2,000 I took to New York that I thought would last forever was going very quickly. And Brian was walking through, and he did a double take, and he walked over to me and he said, "Are you an actress?" And I said, "I am." He said, "You want to be in a movie?" I said, "I do."
Wow.
And I'm telling you. Some people call it a charmed life. I just call it knowing what you want and being clear and being real and coming from love.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's worked. That was your first
Works
movie?
for me, baby.
That was your first movie. You were cast by sitting in a regular job interview. Like, that's just tremendous.
I didn't have a lot to do, but I sure learned a lot watching those three actresses.
But you were one of the wives then?
No. I was the maid. I was the German maid. And he said, "Well, you look German to me." Well, my family is Bowers.
Oh, yeah.
And I have a lot of German in me. German, Irish, Dutch, as my grandma used to say.
So you are also in one of the cult horror classics, The Hills Have Eyes.
Yes, that was my first major film.
That's 1977. That was Wes Craven.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. Shooting out of a cannon. I mean, you just keep doing it. 1981, you did The Howling, where you turn into a werewolf on live TV.
I know, my little Bambi werewolf.
Well, you have the blood-curdling scream that's sort of
Yes.
amazing. I mean, you were a great screamer. I'm
I
sure
am a
you
great screamer. I think
still
I
are.
am a scream queen. So
And they emphasis on the screen. I mean, you scream because you had one of the blood-curdling ones. You were in Steven Spielberg's E.T., and it seems like when things turned around. I mean, not that things weren't turning around, but wow. That's in another stratosphere. That movie was one of the most wonderful movies.
Still
E.T. the
is.
Extraterrestrial, 1982. And you played the part. You know what it was about you? I was thinking, what is it about her? She's always like a mom who's vulnerable and sort of not frail, but vulnerable. But then she's a fierce defender of her
You bet.
children. Like, the strength inside of you
Yeah.
comes out. Like each of these films, you see this kind of quality come through.
Well, I had an incredibly strong mother.
Your mother was an actress, right?
My mother was a beautiful actress.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in community theater. She was a secretary by trade. We were very poor growing up. My dad was an alcoholic, so didn't work a lot of his life.
Wow.
And my mom was the strongest person I've ever met.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you talk about your mom at various points in the book and your dad. And your mom does sound like she went through a lot and raised you and your brother.
Yeah.
Did you have any
I have
other
two
siblings?
brothers.
Two brothers. Okay.
Yeah. Older and a younger.
Wow. So you're middle child too.
Middle child.
But still works. But yeah, your dad committed suicide, and
My dad and my younger brother.
and your younger brother.
Both.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
Damon, I think it was about 4 years ago. I don't really track shit like that, but
I'm sorry.
but that's my story. And I want to emphasize to everyone, we all have our story. It's what you do with your story that's going to make a difference in your life. And one of my friends that I work with say, as long as you keep telling your story, you keep living your story.
Ah.
And we don't want to live the limitations of our lives. We want to live the dreams and the things that we expect or want to expect.
This is okay. So this answers a core question that I had when I was reading the book. It seems like you touched on things but didn't go into them, and it seemed like this is something that you like your father. You touched on it. You just touch on it really quickly.
It's a fact.
It's a fact, but you don't dwell on it.
No.
And not that I was wanting you to dwell, but I was seeing this as a tale of overcoming pretty extreme adversity, that might topple a few other people, and that you really overcame quite a bit. So
Yeah. When we got the news about my younger brother, my daughter, Gabrielle Stone, and I were doing a film together. And my sister-in-law called her and she said, "Oh my God, don't call Mom. I'll go over and tell her in person." And so we cried and we called the rest of the family and we cried. And I looked at her and I said, "Let's go shoot."
Wow.
And she said, "Let's go, Mom."
I mean, that's incredible.
What are you going to do?
No,
Sit
I
there
do.
and wallow, and there's nothing you can do long distance, I mean,
You're exactly right.
I did everything and was there for all of my family in every way I could have been. And that was a part of my life at the moment.
Well, I think you're exactly right. I think during those times people have different responses. But I think, and I hope you don't mind me saying, that one of the responses that came up in my head when you, is like, what a pro. Because there's one thing I know about actors is they proceed no matter what is going on.
Yep. When I was doing The Frighteners in New Zealand, my husband died.
Oh, wow.
And I came back. My little girl was 6. And I put on his service. And I picked my nanny and my daughter up and went back to New Zealand and finished the movie.
Wow. Yeah.
It's strength, not many
It is
people
strength.
can do that.
Everybody can do it.
I
True.
agree
Most
with
people
Dee
don't
on this
choose
one. Yeah.
True.
to do it.
No, you wouldn't choose to do it, but I do believe we all have capability.
You bet we do.
Yeah.
We're so much stronger than we are taught that we can be.
That was one thing I really liked about your book. One of the things, but you really emphasize people's strength, and that's one thing I always try to do. I look at people's adversity because to me, it's important to get the lesson about how people overcome. But I really like, I too like to really focus on what is now. I can go into different. I had a bunch of other things. By the way, Cujo, I just have to say, from
Hardest thing I ever did.
was it really? Why? Because you had like
Have
15
you seen
dogs.
it?
Yes. So, okay, let's just say what Cujo is. You can say it in one sentence. It's a rabid dog that attacks you, and you're trapped
2
in a
hours.
car
Yeah.
with your son, who's Danny Pintero,
Fabulous.
right?
Fabulous.
Who's a little boy at the time.
Yeah.
And you guys are trapped in this car as this rabid dog is going after you.
If I never see another Pinto again, it will be too soon.
It was a terrifying movie, and what was so interesting
Thank
about
you.
it is that it was so real. It wasn't like a monster. It was it was like a dog who...
13 dogs played Cujo.
13. Wow.
They were all trained to go after toys. So we had to tie their tails down with fish wire because they were wagging them all the time. Of course, when they started jumping and barking, and it wasn't difficult at all for your brain to go over into, I'm getting eaten right now, right? So, but we were never afraid of the dogs. They were so well trained by Carl Miller, so well trained.
Wow. I mean, it's one of those rare movies that it's basically like you and him, the son,
Yeah.
and the dog. I mean, there are, you have a husband in the film, and there's,
And a lover, who was my husband, by the way.
Okay, that was your husband.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Wow. Was this the movie that you called up and you said...
No,
Oh.
that was The Howling.
Oh, that was The Howling.
Yeah. And the producer, Dan Blatt, said, well, we have everybody, Dee, but we can't find your husband. I went, well, what exactly are you looking for? And he said, well, somebody really strong but sensitive, really virile, but, with a soft side. And I went, oh, my God, I'm engaged to him. And in the same second, I thought, don't you dare say that. They'll never hire him. So I said, Dan, there's this guy I did Chips with, Christopher Smith or Stone, some S word.
I love this.
And they went off and found him and called him in, and he went in and auditioned and got it on his own. And the phone rings, and it's Dan Blatt, and he says, Dee? And I went, hi, Dan. And he said, that guy you told me, well, we found him and we loved him and we hired him. And I'm sorry, I thought I was calling his number. I guess I called the wrong number. And I went, no, you called the right number, Dad. And there was this long silence, and I hear, oh, shit. And I said, look at it this way. You'll only have to get one trailer.
There
right?
you go.
But they were so happy in the end that Christopher was on the set, because it was a tough shoot for me. And Christopher worked, well, the way Uta Hagen taught. He broke everything down, and I don't do any of that. I studied with a man named Charles Conrad, who became my mentor. And his whole technique was, you don't think, you don't break down, you don't do any of that. You get your energy incredibly high and you throw all your energy to the dog or the werewolf or the person you're working with. And what that does is it opens up a channel. So when I started channeling, I went, oh my God, I know this. I've done this in my acting. And so my two worlds just came together in that moment.
Oh, because I was wondering, and so that answers another question. This is what really started to open up your heart, mind to channeling, to understanding of this sort.
It expanded it.
Expanded it.
Because I've been channeling since I was a little girl.
Well, you did tell a story about your grandma.
Yeah.
You mind telling that?
No,
Okay.
no. I was very, very close to my grandma because my mom had to work all the time. So
Yeah.
I stayed with her during the day, and she picked me up and took me everywhere. And so it was around 3 a.m. in the morning, and I woke up and I went, something's wrong at Grandma's house. Now, I was 8 years old and I went in, and my poor mom, who had to be at work at 7 a.m., I woke her up and I said, Mommy, something's wrong at Grandma's house. And God love her. She didn't say, shut up and go back to bed, right? She got up and we called, and Grandma didn't answer the phone. So we got in the car and we drove over there. And the cat had gotten up on the stove and turned the burners on, but they had not lit.
So
Now,
gas.
maybe Grandma would have been okay in the morning. Who knows?
Who knows?
But there was danger in Grandma's house,
Yeah.
you know? And so anyway, she was okay. And
Was that the first incident of something like that?
that I can remember.
Ah, okay. Yeah, yeah.
That I can
Of course.
remember. And then we moved in to a duplex where Grandma and Grandpa lived up above, but my bedroom was up on that floor too. And I used to sit on these stairs to talk to my boyfriend.
Ah.
And I would hear this voice going, help me. Will you help me? And I finally said out loud, you don't need me to help you. If you want to leave, you can just leave. Never heard the voice again.
Wild.
Yeah. So,
How old were you when that was?
high school.
High school. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, boyfriend. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wild. Okay. Now this is beyond my pay grade, obviously, this stuff, but we'll keep talking. But I just want to touch on another couple of things. I loved you in The Office playing Andy Bernard's mom. By the way, it's you guys are just horrible, which is why it's so funny.
Yeah. We had a good time.
Oh, I'll bet you did. That looked like a fun one. And then Brian loved you in Jeepers Creepers Reborn.
Oh, my gosh. It was a great opening, wasn't it?
Right, I was showing him the
Yeah.
opening scene of it. Right
Yeah.
We
before
just
he came in.
watched it.
And it was during COVID.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God. So everybody had masks. We rehearsed with masks. We tested like twice a day. I mean, it was crazy. But I, again, was not going to let something outside of me define who I am. So let me stop by. All my work is based on the direction of energy. Everything's energy. We learned that in 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There is no good energy. There is no evil energy.
Mm-hmm.
Energy's neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Energy must be directed to take physical manifestation. Like you have to first know what you want. I want to make ice. So you get the ice, you direct the water into the ice tray, right? You direct the ice tray into the refrigerator. You wait a couple of hours, you take the ice out, and you have your scotch. Right? Okay,
Perfect.
that's a simple example of directing energy. Most of us think life just happens. And the more you consciously know what you want, and everybody thinks they do, and I'm telling you, doing 4 or 5 privates a day, most people
Or she is coaching
cannot
sessions. Yeah.
actually tell me what they want. They talk around it. Well, I think it'd be nice if you have to know what you want. That's the first step in creation.
Dee, you and I have the same issue when I have clients in therapy. By the way, they come in, and then I'll say, "What do you want?" "Well, I don't want."
Yes.
And I'll go,
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, but isn't that what we're taught from the time we're little? You know. What do you want? Well, I don't want to have to worry about money. Well, what do you want? Well, I don't want to be so stressed about money. What do you want? Well, I don't want to feel like I never have. This can go on for 20 minutes.
I'll bet.
You know, and they'll get so pissed off at me. They'll go, "God, I want more money." And I went, "Good. First time you tell me what you want." Now, the good thing about knowing what you don't want is that you can easily go to the positive and say what you do want.
Yes, but we
that's
don't.
a choice.
Right.
And you have to be conscious to do that.
It's a choice. You have to be conscious, and you have to be willing to admit to another person you want that. So if I have somebody comes in and said they don't want anxiety, and they'll sit there and say, "I don't want anxiety, I don't want anxiety," we need the other half. Okay, I can give you anxiety control techniques, whatever. We need to know what you're going for. What's the goal? What are your
Peace.
values? What is life? Yeah, you want peace? Great. And what would peace look like? And then we try to make that, envision that, and try to go. So in that way, very similar, I have to say.
You know, I tell my clients that most anxiety, I'm interested to see if you agree with this,
I love it.
that most anxiety comes from not knowing you have control.
So we do have agreement there because
good.
but I can talk about why that's how we might see it, because there's a belief that I'm unable. When I'm unable, which is the same as not having control, when I believe I'm unable, then I can't handle things. I can't handle.
Exactly.
And so I don't
Ergo
have
anxiety.
control. Ergo anxiety. Ergo the strategy of control. So people who get very anxious try to control things because they feel out of control. They're the most controlling. So
But when you direct energy, you are in control in a positive. See, this is where most of my clients are, who've been with me for a while, this is where they get hung up. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to say the exact right words, and I'm going to push, and I'm going to focus, and I'm going to meditate every day on it. Well, that just pushes it away because subconsciously you're going, I'm not going to freaking get this. Right?
Exactly right. Okay, you and I are very much in agreement there, too.
Well, really, I teach all this in the guise of spirituality, but it's really brain science.
Well, it is brain science, so I do cognitive therapy, and it's also parallels Buddhism and Stoicism. I mean, these are ancient philosophies. So, I mean, maybe we're all speaking just slightly different languages of exactly the same thing.
Absolutely.
So what was... I'm sorry.
If you look at the good book,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the
it's
Bible.
saying,
Yeah.
I mean, not what man made the good book into.
I know.
But God said, I want to give you all the desires of your heart. Everything. Not if you're worthy, not if you're a man or a woman, not if you have a high school or a college. I just want to give it all to you, right?
Yeah.
He also said, these miracles and more will you do also.
Mm.
Well, you can't do miracles in your life without knowing how powerful and amazing you are.
And that, interesting, and thank you for saying that. That was where I go, oh, yeah, if, I read through your book and you give a bunch of things and you had a little questionnaire, maybe like 5-7 questions. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I answered yeah for like 5 of them, but no for 2 of them. I was being honest. And I thought, oh, yeah, those are the areas I have to work on.
Oh,
so
awesome.
I like that.
Wow, thank you. I'm honored.
And I was not, I feel basically fairly confident, except about this and that. No, you disagree. But, but
I know the real him. No.
He knows the neurosis. But
We all, we all have areas.
We all have our areas. But in general, I feel like, I've come a long way, baby. I came from, some struggle as well. And but it's just so interesting to me. I'm like, okay, I like that this book that's in a different language, and that was a challenge for me at first because I was prepared because of The Secret, and I'm sorry, but The Secret movie, which I watched, and I was like, I disagree with this. I disagree. When people are saying you should never have a negative feeling, I'm like, what? That's part of life.
Yeah.
And it guides us.
What do you do with it?
Yeah, exactly. You're grieving.
But don't you agree that it's really simple to read?
Oh my goodness, it was incredibly simple.
Good.
Yeah, incredibly
that was my goal.
Conversational.
Yeah.
Very So the book is Reborn, Giving Birth to a New You, 2022. I guess it was released. Dee Wallace is the author. It's a really incredible book. Dee, can we start talking about, first I want to just talk about some of the concepts and then we'll just talk.
I will talk about anything.
But I was amazed. There were similar things in the book. You talked about harmony, and I'm like, this is really like the concept of acceptance. And acceptance is a hard concept in psychology to get across to people because a lot of people think acceptance is the same as resignation, like giving up. And I'm like, oh, no, it's embracing.
Yeah.
It's embracing. It's like becoming one with. It's being okay even when things are bad. Also,
a good example is I can't get a script and go, well, I don't freaking want to do this and do a good job. I have to accept the material.
Oh, my goodness. That's a great example.
Before I start working with the material. Yeah, maybe there are some things that I want to change or shade a different way or, but I have to accept it. I can't fight against it and do my job.
That is such a great example because the opposite would be like, to me, resignation, where you're like, okay, I have to take this job. I just have to do what they tell me to do. And as opposed to, as an actress, you're playing a role. You have to, there are many, it's a back and forth, isn't it? And you're having a relationship.
I just had this discussion with 5 young actresses at a convention.
Really?
That I did. And I just shut up and let them all answer the question. Well, you have to go on the set. You have to do what the director tells you to do. You're there to... And I just let them all talk, and I go, okay, well, I disagree. Your job is most definitely to bring the director's vision to life. And your job is to do that in the most truthfully honest, dramatic way that's real. one of the biggest moments in E.T. that and let me preface this by saying Mr. Spielberg is an amazing director. But when I come in and see E.T., I have the coffee cup in my hand, and he made my wrist go limp and let the coffee run out. And I went, "Oh, Stephen, please don't make me do that." No, I want it. I said, "I know, but it's so typical. Please don't." But I did it because that was my job, and I spoke my truth about it. And on the other side, the big dinner table scene, when we're talking about E.T., and I said, "Well, why don't you tell your father?" And he says, "I can't. He's in Mexico with Sally." So Mary feels all these
That was
tears
your part.
coming up. And I thought, I can't let my kids see me cry, so I got up and left. So Stephen cuts it, and he comes over and he says, "Dee, why did you get up and leave? That's not in the script." And I told him what happened to me. And he looked at me, and he turned to his crew, and he said, "Everybody, you've got 30 minutes. Build me another wall here to the kitchen with a sink with running water," so he could take me over to the sink and bring me back into that big close-up where I say, "He hates Mexico."
Yeah.
And that's when the magic happens. But the magic wouldn't have happened if I hadn't trusted Mary, and Dee hadn't trusted Stephen, and Stephen hadn't trusted me. And then that magical moment that was totally real had permission to be born, you know?
If you don't mind me saying, that moment was like a knife in my heart when I watched that film.
Oh.
And my mother was divorced, and we had those dinners. That rang so true to me.
Yeah.
That it was like, it rang so true to me.
That's what happened to Mary.
Yeah.
When he said it.
And my mother's named Mary, too. Maybe that didn't help.
You know, and
Hi,
the
Mom.
whole penis
She
breath
listens.
laugh, that just happened. You know, if I'd thought about it, I would have gone, "No penis breath talk in this house," you know. But it was
Just
like,
flew by.
in the moment, it was like, "Oh, this is pretty funny, my kids using that word."
That was real, too, though.
Yeah, you bet.
That was real too. And you know, but so you told a story on Drew Barrymore. I'm sorry to talk about something completely different, but you told about Steven Spielberg, and that Drew Barrymore would go and talk to the E.T. puppet.
Oh, yeah. In the very beginning of the shoot, they stood E.T. over in a corner because he wasn't being used. And Stephen walked by, and Drew was over there just talking to him, talking up a storm. And so from then on, Stephen had 2 people assigned just to E.T. so that when Drew came over, he could, you know, do his eyes and react to her in some way.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That shows something about Steven Spielberg.
You bet it does.
Yeah.
He's magical with those kids.
Ah.
And see, I was in heaven because I don't like to rehearse. And so I worked just the way the kids did. He'd throw things out. He'd say to Drew, "All right, Drew, take a bite of your hamburger and look at Elliot and say, you know, monsters in the closet," or whatever, you know. Because
You captured her just
the
then,
more
but-
you rehearse a kid, the more stage they get.
Oh, and the kids were amazing.
Oh,
in that.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing, as was Danny Pintaro and Cujo.
Yeah. Yeah, and you were great with them. So
Everybody says, never work with kids and dogs. Well, I've made a really good career out of it, and I love working with them because they're real. They're so real,
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've had, just really incredible, and I could see it even right now, the tenderness inside of you that must be why people just want to cast you in things.
I'm kind of run by my heart.
That's
for sure.
It's not a bad thing.
Not at all.
So let's talk about manifesting, because this is also a concept that, I'll be honest, it wasn't a concept I was always like rolled my eyes whenever I'd hear people talk about it, because I knew people would say, oh, I'm going to manifest this or that, I'm making a vision board. And I always saw it as like a cosmic cash machine that they weren't going to do anything. And your ice tray example that you already said here, like making the ice, well, I went, oh, that's okay. That makes sense to me.
That's pretty much how you manifest anything.
Then I was like, oh, how come no one's ever explained it that way?
I think I do in there.
You do.
Yeah.
You very definitely do.
Look, these are the steps. Know what you want.
Yes.
Commit to it.
Yes.
Feel love around it.
That's interesting, yeah.
And tell the universe, come on, create it with me. And then let go. The universe will manifest it better than you can imagine. Like one time, I created my daughter like this. 6 specialists told me I would never have a baby. I said, Thanks for sharing. God and I have a different plan. Took me 6 years, but she just gave me my first grandson.
Wow.
Incredible. Yeah. Everybody said, don't go to New York. Nobody knows you. You don't know anybody. I said, thanks for sharing, but I'm going to go anyway. Less than 7 years it took me before I started in ET.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, you shot
kind
out of a
Hollywood
rocket.
Story, isn't it? Yeah, because I taught a year of high school. I didn't leave Kansas till I was 27, which is old to start a career. Yeah,
in Hollywood, Hollywood, yeah, they do put a prize on youth, and that's another thing is you work. If you look at your IMDb, every single year has multiple movies and TV appearances. I think I have 4 coming out that I did this year. Unbelievable.
And I'm recurring on 911.
That's amazing.
Which I love.
Good.
And just did a wonderful project for Netflix. And I see, let me tell you, the rule over all rules in manifesting is as you believe, that's what you're going to get. Mm-hmm. So if you stop and look at where your walls are and write down everything that was taught to you from conception to 8 years old about that particular subject, you will absolutely see all the walls you're hitting.
Oh, yeah.
Because a child's brain is locked in to their belief system by 8 years old. 8 years old. So, growing up, my dad was an alcoholic, so all I saw was my mom taking care of him. We lived with my grandparents, and my grandfather had been a very big CPA in Kansas City, but as I was growing up, he'd already had 2 strokes, so all I watched was my grandmother taking care of him. My other grandfather had Parkinson's. So I went, oh, I get it. Women take care of men. It took me 4 marriages to figure out I didn't want that friggin' belief.
Well, you worked through it. So
I worked through it, baby. I sure did.
That's so interesting to me because I always say I do have that belief that you develop certain core beliefs that really paralleled By the way, I was just like kind of blown away. You have this 3 pillars: how you see yourself, how you see the world, and how I see the world seeing me.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh my God, that's like core beliefs.
Brilliant. It's brilliant.
Well,
and it's simple.
Well, in cognitive psychology, we're like, I am, what the belief is,
Yes.
I am, others are, which is sort of like how
Yes.
others seeing you, others are, and the world is. And that definition, I take people with a visualization into a circumstance that they don't like their own behavior, let's say. So I can start to discover what's driving it
Oh,
and how
awesome.
they're seeing themselves. And then with the flip side of that, which not everyone, sometimes it's very hard for people to do this work. So I can imagine for you, this can be very hard. Because then I do a little bit differently. You have statements and things I want to ask you about, but for just to say the psychology is we take them into their desired behavior, like what their values tell them, what their core tells them they want to be. Who is that? And then how does then they see themselves? I am, others are, the world is. And you point out in your book, if you even have one missing or one's like defaulting to the old system, it just takes you right back. You
Yeah.
can't be there. So I was like, this is exactly parallel to the work we do with personality change and with helping people with very core beliefs. So I was excited by that.
Cool.
If you don't mind me saying.
No, I'm honored again. You know, I mean, I have a minor in psychology. And I don't really think I've used any of it in my healing work. Everything's been channeled to me. Everything has been channeled to me. And
So when you say channel, what's that like?
yeah.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm just curious.
No, I hear things.
Okay.
Now, again, I start with directing energy.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to be an empath. I don't want to take other people's crap on. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very clear to direct my channel that way. When I first heard from, and it was so funny, somebody called into my show, they said, Dee, who do you channel? I said, I don't have the foggiest idea. Let's ask. And it was all thought and all possibility.
Oh.
And I went, well, that's my definition of God. But you can call it creative force. You can call it whatever you want. It's all the same energy, right? So what was the question?
Well, I mean, what was it? Yeah,
Where
I
were
was
we
just
going?
curious. Well, I mean, because the channeling concept
Oh,
is
how
an
to
interesting
channel.
one.
Yeah. So when I was first contacted, I said, well, first of all, why me? And they said, because you're the girl next door and you'll be able to say it so people can understand it. I went, okay, I'm good with that.
And that is 100% accurate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Honored again. But I said, look, I don't want to take other people's stuff on. You are in no way supposed to use my brain, my mind, or my body to emphasize what you're trying to get across. I'm not up for any of that. You give me the information, and I do this on a daily basis. I am directing that I receive the highest information, the highest knowledge, and this is the important part, and the highest understanding.
Huh.
Because a lot of channels get pieces of information, but they don't understand the highest understanding of it.
Uh-huh.
Like, I had a psychic say to me one time, you're going to have an affair right in front of your husband. I went, I don't think so. I'll be dead. So that summer, I did Annie, Get Your Gun at Starlight Theater in front of 4,000 people, including my husband. And I had a love affair on stage
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So she got a piece of it, but she didn't get the whole thing.
That's
right?
interesting.
So it's very it amazes me during my private sessions every time that people will start talking and I'll just grab it's like an energy behind what it is that I'm supposed to hear. And that will ultimately, and I work with the pendulum, ultimately lead to the highest information that your intellectual mind would never put together.
Huh. Well, you brought the pendulum.
I brought one of them, yeah.
How does that, how does the pendulum work?
I don't know. Can you see it? Yeah.
It's
okay. It has no power in its own. If I drop it, oh well. So it's like a telephone, but everybody has to find out their own yes and no and maybe, because it's different for everybody. So can you see it?
Yeah.
Show me my yes. You see, as soon as I gave it direction, that's my yes.
Oh my God.
Show me my no. Goes the other way. You see, I'm not.
And may I say, I was telling Dee right before this that in New York, a woman had me, who lived down the hall, had me hold up a pendulum, and she did the exact thing you're doing now, and I was the one holding it and saw it go different directions, and I did not move it.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's wild. It would always freak me out a little.
Why?
But not in a bad way, but it was more like, wow, that's
just
amazing.
freaked you out because it was something you hadn't seen before.
Wasn't
and
expecting.
Everybody thinks it's woo-woo and black magic. Again, energy's neutral. Now, if you have a belief that energy's negative and can get you, then you will manifest those experiences because as you believe, it's delivered to you.
Wow.
So I use this, it's just a tool of discernment for me. Like this is a good thing to start with. My name is Dee, goes to yes. My name is Methuselah, goes right to no.
Wild. Okay, it just changed directions.
Yeah. Yeah. So go ahead, say my name is.
Oh, my name is Greg. My name is Stephen. Oh, yeah, it's changing.
That's wild.
Yeah. Wild.
It just really matches what is truthful for you.
Wow. How interesting.
And that helps your discernment, right? And then I've got all these pages that were channeled to me. One time I was at my niece's house for Christmas, and we were all staying in different bedrooms. 3 a.m. every morning, they would wake me up. The energy would wake me up. They is an old term. And they would give me all these core beliefs.
Wow.
That I still...
You practice?
Well, I still use them. I test. You know, I hear go to a core belief, and that usually gives me a really good start as to where we're starting in the private, you know.
How fascinating. Oh, yeah. No, I want to talk with you more about those things. There's so much similarity. Oh my goodness. But I want to say I found this study, Paranormal Beliefs and Stress, and I wouldn't have even brought it up because there's so much. But wow, you're highlighting something to me that the study kind of came out with, which is Manchester Metropolitan University in the UK. This is November 2024, just released in a journal called Plus One. They looked at traditional paranormal beliefs, witchcraft, religious concepts, like in your movies, and then New Age philosophy, which is spiritualism, psychic abilities, those types of things. They compared the two, and they looked at people who, had this belief. They used this belief scale, and they looked at 3,000 individuals there in London, and they were looking at traditional beliefs versus New Age philosophy. They found that people with traditional beliefs, that's like belief in ghosts and evil and this type of thing.
Those are traditional, huh?
I guess so. Traditional
Okay.
paranormal beliefs increased, well, that's how they defined it.
Yeah.
So increased distress and reduced coping abilities. And it's thought that traditional beliefs may reflect anxiety over which people want to external control, that they believe that there's anxiety over external control, like they can't control what's around them. So it's just what you said at the very beginning.
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet.
And they're
like
afraid.
the 8-year-old knowing that there's a boogeyman in the closet, And so you get them up and you take them into the closet and you see, sweetheart, there's nothing here.
Yeah.
Doesn't do much good, does it? Because just showing them doesn't get rid of the belief.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, if you take their favorite toy and give it to them and say, Betsy will protect you because she loves you. And nothing bad is going to happen to you when Betsy's with you. That usually works.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
So how do we do that with ourselves as an adult? Right? What is it?
And it's the beliefs, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
But, after E.T., for example, for a year, I kept pulling back into myself. And I went, what is going on? And I heard my grandmother say, they're the rich people. We're the good people.
Oh, wow. So you're
And
one or
I
the
thought,
other.
I'm one of them.
Oh.
I'm one of them.
Oh.
And God's not going to love me, and my friends aren't going to love me. And I said, this is not a belief I want to choose.
Good.
I know where Grandma got that belief. Like a lot of limiting beliefs come from religious training. They just do.
That's true.
But I was an adult now. I got to choose beliefs that empowered me. And I said, you know what? Money has no power on its own. When I go out and speak now, I'll take a big pile of money and I'll put it on the stage and I'll say, all right, you guys, I want you to watch that money and watch all the bad shit it does in the next 2 hours. Watch it. And everybody laughs. But in life, we think making a lot. Well, once I got that information and said, you know what? My consciousness determines what I do with my money. And the more money I have, the more I can help my family, the more I can give to charities for doggies that I love, save the children. I do great things with my money. Bring it on, universe. And do you know, every year my money's gone up.
Wow.
Every year. Yeah.
Well, that would be something I need to resolve my beliefs with money. Money is actually, in psychology, we call it a generalized conditioned reinforcer, which means money in behavioral language stands for everything else and nothing else. Like, money's sort of this neutral thing that people assign value, they assign beliefs to.
Yeah.
And that we are what
So
we
what
do.
did your mother teach you about money?
Oh, well, we can't afford it. I must have heard that. I got to the point, I remember, I joined Boy Scouts and they gave me a list of things to buy and I was like, oh.
Yeah, and that
I
was...
just walked out.
That started around the age of 3, in case you're interested.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So when we're young and we don't have the capacity to reason, we can't afford it equals we hate money because you can't get it. Right?
I guess. Yeah, I did not thought of that. I had not thought of that. But
Well,
that
sure.
makes sense.
If you could afford it, money would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So you've got to work with your little boy and say, I love you and I understand why you created this belief. But I'm going to reparent you now so that we can work together and create more of what we want.
Wow. I could keep talking to you because this exactly parallels work that I do in a kind of just different language. It's like you're speaking Spanish and I speak Italian. I mean, it's...
Well, as long as we're speaking
but we can
the
understand
truth,
each other.
it's okay. You bet.
Because, yeah, that, having to realign those beliefs, but having I always say, the important thing about the past is to have compassion for the past so that you can let it go.
You bet.
People demand a different reality of the past, and that doesn't help. That's, but if you can have compassion and be able to then, and I loved your 0 point, which to me is like just being absolutely present and a combination of that and radical acceptance of what is, like being where you are.
It's being
and going
in the
from
moment
there.
of creation right now, You're creating your life right now in this moment right now. And people go, yeah, but I was, my father sodomized me when I was 3. Okay, what are you doing with it now? You see, they're still using something that happened to them at 3, and it was a horrible, horrible thing. And if you keep telling your story, you're going to keep living. This is the reason why I'm limited and can't create what I want. In reality, nobody's limited. Nobody's stuck. You just haven't chosen to honor the past. You know what my channel says? It's that we all pick the families that we're born into, usually to learn what we don't want, so that when we wake up, we're very clear about what we do want. I didn't want to believe that they were bad because they had money. I didn't want to believe that women had to take care of men all the time. What do you want to choose to believe that empowers you to get what you want? And I love, my channel makes it so simple. Whatever you love, whatever you want, love it more. Whatever you want, love it more. You want more money? You better love money. You want health? Quit trying to fix the illness and love being healthy. Whatever you focus on, and that's brain science.
Yes.
Whatever you focus on, you create more of.
Yeah. I really feel like I could learn, and I really appreciate like just this hour that we've had with you.
Oh my God, this has been one of the best. Bar none, one of the best, and you know how many I do. This has been amazing.
You're kidding. Wow. I mean, wow. I thank you so much.
To share this with you and back and forth like this. It's just been awesome.
Well, you've been awesome. You've been awesome for years, and I didn't even know I'd ever meet you. And the book was a surprise to me, which I was happy about.
Thank you.
And I went through it more than once. I mean, I was really curious, and then I was wow, this just aligns up. I mean, to me, it was almost like this. I wanted to do a presentation at school about it. Was that type of thing?
Call me, I'll come in.
Well, I don't teach in school anymore, but not a student anymore either. But anyway, I just really appreciate that, and yeah, I really appreciate you coming in and being here and really sharing your life and sharing your wisdom. And I feel like there's just so much more. But there's more. You're on imdeewallace.com. Is that correct?
That's my website. I am deewallace.com.
So that's great. And there they can link to get it, both to your radio show, it's a call-in show
It's
too.
a free call-in show. You can call in and ask the channel anything you want. It's on Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. Pacific time.
So go to imdeewallace.com, and then also you can see you for private sessions.
Yes.
For more of this.
Yes.
And I think you can buy the books. They're the link trees for the books.
And I'll sign them for you.
Oh, that's incredible. Yes. So that's great. And and thank you.
There's a lot of free stuff to listen to, too, if you want to see, wow, do I associate with this? Does this harmonize with me? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you were just incredible. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for coming, Dee.
Right back at you, baby.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. I'm sorry, but I know Brian had...
Oh, no, I'm just amazed. I'm listening to everything like, wow, I wish I had a notepad just to take notes down from this.
You'll have a
whole
recording.
I know.
Yeah.
Even better. Because it's just amazing, like, everything you guys were both saying.
Oh, thank you.
I can't wait for everybody to listen to
I'll lend you my book.
Yeah.
I know. I was literally thinking the same thing.
Well, that wraps up the show for today. I'm actually sad about that. Reminder to like, subscribe, give us 5 stars. If you want to go, and I have all the stuff, all the show notes, Lee's links, the book links, movie links, go to youtube.com/Dr. Greg, and I'll have everything there. Also, if you have questions or topics you'd like us to cover, hit me up. And this is Dr. Greg, Brian, Jamie, and the incredible Dee Wallace. Thank you, Dee. Bidding you farewell. Until next time, be present, be flexible, and be kind.